I'm Mike,
And I'm Amber. Welcome to the Covenant Chronicles,
where we tell you the truth about relationships,
giving you the tools to build the foundation you always needed. Welcome back to the Covenant Chronicles.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
We'll figure it out eventually.
Someday.
Yeah.
I'm tired tonight.
Yeah, not this week, though. We have a lot going on. We are currently moving. We are currently doing quite a few other things, transitions in life all at the same time. We've kind of, I guess, hinted to some changes in life. The cool part about that is, though, is we are actually setting up a podcast studio and therefore will actually start doing video here soon. So that'll be exciting. So people can look forward to that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I wanted to mention, if you have not checked out our school community, we do have a community on the School platform, SKOOL, for those of you that are not familiar with School. Think about like Facebook groups, just much better, much healthier, more focused. It's not just a free-for-all social media with all the junk and garbage. It is specifically designed around building online communities. So we do have our school community called Covenant Couples. If you have not checked that out, Amber has been linking that, I believe, in our descriptions on the podcast. So you should be able to view that there. But you can also just go to school and type in Covenant Couples.
Yeah.
It is there. So some really cool free resources. One of the best year-long Bible study / relationship workshops is actually in the free side. We do have some different stuff and different tiers there, but there's a ton of stuff actually you can join for free. You can interact with other people. We post stuff about the podcast. We talk about the podcast. We post all kinds of stuff to help your relationship, spark ideas, get you thinking, get you continue moving forward, working on your identity, working on your relationship. And there's a ton of tools and stuff in there. So go check that out.
Yeah.
That being said, I want to talk about work on the relationships. And I wanted to talk about this because, you hear people mention regularly, apparently Remy is dead set on being a guest tonight.
Yeah, his little.
Yeah. I don't even know if
in the background.
But the dog is. Oh man, he's being, the dog. He's got to be the center of attention, and
well, neither of us have been home all day, so now he wants all the attentions because he hasn't had any attentions today.
Yeah, we've been working, business, getting the new house cleaned and set up and put together and ready to move. So, anyways, with that being said, speaking of work, I want to talk about working on relationships. And I had this realization recently, and we've talked about this before, and we have consistently brought it up actually. But I want to actually try to get people to understand the level of work on your relationship that it takes to have a successful relationship. Because we mention it in many podcasts, and we've talked about it for a few minutes here and there. But I was looking at, and I think it was the fact that you were talking about, hey, we talk about this all the time, right? Of where when, you'll bring up, hey, I'm feeling disconnected right now. I really need some connection time, or I need time with you, or I really want to reconnect, which usually means us spending time, doing something together, being intentional, emotional, sexual intimacy, all that sort of stuff, right? And just bringing us back together. And it's so interesting because I go back to there's a verse in the Bible and it basically says, whatever you do, essentially work heartily, right? And I, it's so interesting to me that, and I guess it's not interesting in the sense that people do it. It's interesting that at some point it doesn't click for people because basically the deal is that um, everything you do that you are good at in your life, right? Your job, your sport, your hobby, whatever it is that you are good at or that you spend time on, you are intentional about it. You do the work, you spend the time on it, you practice over and over, you do all this stuff. And, for most people, like think about it. You go to your job 5 days out of the week, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have a job, I mean, you're working at least 40 hours for most people. If you have a business, it's more like you just never stop working, let's be honest, right? Um, and if you're doing, say a hobby of some sort, you usually are spending a good chunk of your free time doing that, researching it, studying it, practicing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's so interesting to me that at some point people don't put together, right? When they want a successful relationship and they want a successful marriage, they don't put it together and say, oh, I have to be that intentional about it.
Yeah.
And it made me think about it because with everything we have going on, right? And we've had our moments where we've let the stress get the best of us and we've had some disagreements and we've clashed a little bit and, all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, there's still this like communication here of us going, hey, basically, it looks something like this. Typically it's, when we're laying in bed, the end of the night, sometimes it's during the day, whatever. But there's a communication that comes from you and it's essentially communicating that you feel really disconnected right now. Yeah, you're stressed, you feel some stuff going, um, all these feelings because of just everything going on. But you communicate that and that you're feeling really disconnected right now and you're just, kind of missing me.
Mm-hmm.
And usually there's, I respond and we have a little discussion about it and all this stuff. And then even if we can't fully reconnect in the way that we would like to that day or in that moment or whatever it is, right? We are still intentional about, okay, we need to put effort and put, water our grass when it comes to our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that's why we've been able to create what we have created. And essentially it has a lot to do with the fact that we are very, very intentional about things, right? We're not floating by. We're not just being passive and just existing in the same house. We're not letting uh, our relationship just simply exist, right? And we're actively, and what's interesting about this is people will be like, man, that sounds like so much work. And it is. But you pour everything you have into your children that eventually, after 18 years, grow up and they go off and they start their own family and they do their own things, right? You pour everything you have into your job or your business, right? You
Mm-hmm.
pour everything that's left over into your hobby. But the person that you are spending the rest of your life with, or supposed to be spending the rest of your life with, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think that just simply existing is adequate. You think that simply existing is okay. You accept that. You make the choice to accept that as okay.
I think it just sort of happens a lot of time in relationships, in the sense of like some form of disconnection happens, whether it be an argument or just life getting busy, whatever the case may be. And instead of communicating that you feel disconnected, you just sort of let it go, and then let it go and let it go and let it go, to the point that like disconnection just becomes the norm. And you forget that you need to reconnect. But also, I think there's a level of people being afraid sometimes to communicate that they feel disconnected.
There's all kinds of factors there, right? There's I'm sure there's a fear of rejection. There's a level of, well, society says that if it doesn't just work, that, there's a problem, and not wanting to, acknowledge a problem.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of reasons, but at the end of the day, it's still a choice,
Oh,
right?
for
And
sure.
you're still making that choice. And here's the thing, like, you and I have both done this in our previous marriages, right?
Yeah.
So this is not like us just, whatever, or like pretending like we've never done that, or that we don't know what that's like, right? And I think we can acknowledge that, like you said, something happens and you drift a little more, and you drift a little more, and you drift a little more, and it's kind of this slow drift, much like, a lot of the pastors have talked about with this recent um, series that they're doing at church, right? It's the slow drift that takes you so far off course.
Yeah.
And, but that's the point, I guess, that I'm trying to make here, right? You don't get so far off course and get to that point of failure, or get to the brink of divorce, or divorce, or infidelity, or any of those other things, because someone just randomly said, okay, I just want to be, instead of being at this point, I want to be at that point over there, right?
Yeah.
It's this slow drift and this choice that you are making every single day for an extended period of time, to just be passive and basically not put in the work in the relationship, right? Because that's what we're talking about. And that's, if you chose every day, even if you own a business, at some point you've worked at a job in your life, right? Let's say you were at a job, and whatever job it is, it really doesn't matter. Let's just say you chose to not really show up mentally at your job for
Mm-hmm.
a day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is that catastrophic? No. They'd
Yeah.
probably get behind on some work, whatever. People kind of like, oh, maybe notice, maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay, now what about day 2? Right? What about day 3? What about day 4? What about 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Typically, after a couple days, your boss is going to come to you and go, hey, pull your head out of your butt. Or, hey, what's going on? Because, like, we need you to show up, and you're just existing here. Right?
Yeah.
But we don't do that with our relationships.
Yeah.
We don't, oh man, we've been really busy for the past couple days. And that's what I'm getting at, right? Is it's not the big, and if you're at a place that you've been somewhere in your relationship for years, and you're trying to repair that, you're trying to rebuild it, you're trying to shift gears, it's the same thing, right? It doesn't change overnight. It's slow drift back to get it on course, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's changing the steering and the direction that you're heading, just a degree at a time, right? But for anybody that is not realized, or anybody especially that's new in a relationship, or anybody that's maybe even doing a relationship and has been for quite some time and just not in a place that they want to be or even could improve, right? Because every
Yeah.
relationship has places that it can improve.
Yeah.
It's the slow drift that creates the problem.
Hmm.
It's does life happen? Like you said, like life gets in the way, right? Life gets in the way for a couple days. Does that mean that life stops getting in the way? No, absolutely not.
Hmm.
But what it does mean is that the next step is after a couple days, you need to be intentional about your relationship,
Yeah.
right? If this is part of your life, if you're becoming one, if you're going to be with this person for the rest of your life, why are you prioritizing everything else, right? Because that's the thing, right? Like you said, life gets in the way. Does it, or is it the choice you're making, right? Because everything is a choice
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right? And that doesn't mean that it's not hard,
Yeah.
or that doesn't mean it's not harder than you want it to be,
Hmm.
right? Because it's not hard. Nothing is hard. It's just different. It's you haven't done enough to be efficient at it. It's you haven't ever done this before, so you haven't seen the other side, right? Like as we were just talking about with our friends, right? Like, one of our close friends keeps talking about that, and he changed the language inside of his house, and I'm like, dude, I'm stealing that, right? Like
Yeah.
nothing is hard, right? It's different. And the reality is that doesn't mean that when all these occurrences come up in life with all this stuff that it might be different. It might be, more challenging than you really want it to be in this current moment.
Yeah.
But you have the ability to make that choice of, are you going to Jeez Louise, this dog. My bad. We're getting distracted over here with the dog.
He's
Um,
trying to talk to me now
yeah.
because I'm not petting him.
But are you going to make that choice, right? And it's funny because I think this will segue into the next podcast potentially, where we talk about how words are important, and we go down that rabbit hole and deep dive that. But it's true because we don't want to say, or when we tell people, we go, okay, well, yeah, I always put God first, and then the way it's supposed to be, right, is God, yourself, spouse, everything else,
Yeah.
right? God, yourself, spouse, kids, everything else. So the question is, are you actually acting that out, or are you making excuses? Are you acting that out, or are you making different choices, right? And the reality is that you should be doing the work. You're intentional about showing up to church. You're intentional about your faith. You're intentional about your relationship, or you should be, right? Let's be honest. Some people show up to four walls and a roof on a Sunday and say, I'm good. But some people are really intentional about their faith.
Yeah.
Why are you not intentional about your relationship, right? You're really intentional about going to your job every day. You're really intentional about doing what your boss wants you to do. You're really intentional about committing your life to that career or that job. Why are you not intentional about your relationship? Right.
Yeah.
And just like everything else in your life, you can have an off day. You can have a couple off days. You should not have off weeks and months without, and that's not to say, hey, there's not these extraordinary circumstances that can occur in life that do, potentially alter that. But in the majority of cases, with most people, they are choosing not to be intentional about their relationship because it's a simple choice, right? And if you really think about it, like, it's not you and I putting everything in life on hold and just completely ignoring the world for a whole day because, well, we had a couple days that we were a little disconnected, right? It's
Yeah.
just you simple communication and you saying, hey, I'm struggling right now. I feel really distant from you. I'm feeling really disconnected from you. And the acknowledgement of, okay, well, let's be intentional. Let's be intentional on spending a little time together. Let's be intentional on having some conversation. Let's be intentional about having sex. Let's be intentional about whatever, right?
Yeah.
For an evening or an hour or two before bed or being intentional about maybe cuddling you, when we go to sleep or sending you some reminder texts, during the day that I love you or whatever the case is, right? It's that intentionality, though, that you have to be continuing to pour into your relationship if you want it to work long term.
I think it's good to acknowledge that it can take time too to get back to a point of like feeling connected again.
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes work and time. I mean, we don't typically get disconnected for long periods of time, but we have recently. And it's gone longer than it should have, longer than I wanted it to,
Right.
anyways. um, and it did take time to get back to a place of still not 100%, but like we're working towards that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it did take days of doing things and being intentional about spending time or just making an effort. And I mean, there were definitely moments that I felt like we were drifting, and I didn't like that I felt like we were drifting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did have to have, conversations with you, or you would notice that I seemed off. So you'd make a comment and just ask if I was okay or if something was off or whatever, which I think is just like that putting in that little bit of work whenever you need to. Well, I won't say need to, because really you should be doing that all the time to keep connection,
Mm-hmm.
right? But, sometimes it's just the little things. Just holding hands, putting your arm around your spouse when you're out or at church or, whatever. Like just doing little things that are intentional to build back and work on your relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing is I'll say, correct me if I'm wrong, but like even, when those time periods were longer, like you said, longer than you would like, we still didn't like completely ignore it and just coast, right? I still think there was parts in between where we were still communicating and saying, hey, disconnected. We need to work on this, right? And we
Yeah.
would try a little bit and a little, and like you said, like there was, recently with everything going on, there has been these bigger swings of disconnection, but there's not been, say, weeks of us just coasting and ignoring it and pretending it's not a thing and just going about our life and just existing, right?
Yeah.
We've been disconnected or more disconnected than we would like, but there's still the reminders, there's still the communication, there's still the attempts and continued effort in between.
Yeah. I would say we weren't necessarily super great at the continued effort the entire time, but there was still communication about feeling disconnected or, you know, wanting to work on it, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it does take work, especially when you are already disconnected. It takes the level of being honest and being open.
Mm-hmm.
It also takes the level of receiving, because I think that's part of why people just get disconnected and stay that way forever, is sometimes it's like not received. And then it just continues going because someone tried to communicate it and the other partner didn't receive it. And so nothing ever came of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that goes into a bigger conversation about communication, right? But the other side of this, though, is like relationships don't start that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's typically like if you've been in a relationship for a long time or a marriage for a long time and you haven't been able to communicate, you have been disconnected and for a long time. Yes, baby steps. It's steering it back on course 1 degree at a time, all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
But prior to getting there, right?
Hmm.
Like that's the thing is this is a double-edged sword. You don't want to do that. You have to be intentional. You have to put the effort in. You have to be consistently making things happen,
For sure.
right? The flip side is if you've already been in that scenario for a long time, you can steer it back. You be consistent, put in the effort. It's going to be ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
Building a relationship is much like an investor describes a great investment. It's not flat, right? It's not just a solid line. There's ups and downs,
Hmm.
but over time, it continues to go up,
Yeah.
right? Small ups and downs. Over time, you zoom out, it's gone up, for 20, 30 years. That's what your relationship should be. There's going to be ups and downs. It's inevitable. It's part of life.
Yeah.
But how drastic those ups and downs are totally up to you. And whether the overall trend is up is totally up to you. And a major part of that is just being intentional and continuing to show up over and over and over and show up when you're tired and exhausted and when life has been crazy and you noticed, hey, I'm disconnected from my spouse. But the reality is you have to care enough to actually want to be connected to your spouse.
Yeah. For sure.
And then being intentional every single day. And if something happens and it's not, and you drift and a couple days or a week goes by, having the intentionality to say, let me steer the ship back on course. Communicate, talk about it, connect with your spouse,
Hmm.
and continue over and over to do that.
Okay. Yeah. You got to make the effort.
Anyways, that's been on my mind recently. It's the work and the consistency and just, like I said, the level of with everything that's gone on recently for us, like it would break a lot of people, right? But that's the thing is like we're still in a place that is, in my opinion, great if we were to consider the societal standard. Now, you and I, right? That's the other thing. It's okay to hold a higher standard for your relationship.
Hmm.
And for us, okay, we need to focus on this because this isn't great compared to the standard that we hold ourselves to,
Yeah.
right? But compared to societal standard, It's fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
and that's, it was just this thought. I want to say it was 4 or 5 days ago it came to me, and I was just thinking, and it was, I think you had mentioned something that evening about you were just, seemed a little off. I checked on you and you're like, yeah, I'm a little stressed currently, but um, I just am feeling really disconnected. I'm currently feeling disconnected from you and this, that, and the other, right? And it was just this like aha moment of, like you said, like it hasn't been perfect. We've drifted longer than we'd like,
Mm-hmm.
but we're still checking in. We're still communicating. We're still putting in the effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on that note,
That's all we got for you.
yeah. So this week, there, there very well might only be this podcast for the next week because we are currently moving, but we will try to get them out as quick as we can. We don't really like that we haven't gotten out as much as we would like lately because we really do like being consistent for our listeners, but we
It's
will get back to
good
that
changes
shortly.
though. We've talked about a lot of that stuff. We're going down to one podcast a week, but we're also, with all the moves and everything going on, we'll start doing video. We don't have an exact execution date on that.
Yeah.
Currently the studio that we are setting up is bright pink with sparkles. So that's not exactly going to work. So yeah,
Can't convince you of that, huh?
no, we're not doing that. So anyways, on that note, we'll be doing that. And like I said, we've continued to work on other stuff too. We're consistently building, there's a more consistent social media regimen that's going to be rolling out to continue to help you guys. The community is all the foundations being laid. There's a lot of stuff going on in the back end and in the school community that we talked about, all that sort of stuff. So
yeah.
That being said, action steps. So action step, share this podcast with 3 people that you know that are in relationships. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter if you think this will help them. I promise you, if it's not something that has been said tonight, they will listen to something of ours and take something away from it that will help them. So don't be selfish. Share it with them.
Don't
3
be
people.
selfish.
Yeah. And if you are in your relationship and you are trying to make the improvements and you need help with a roadmap, you can schedule a call with Amber and I at the covenantchronicles.com. That is the website. There's ways to schedule on there. There is a relationship audit link on there. You can take that. That's free. That'll give you exactly where you are at. And at the end of that, it actually gives you an option to schedule a call with us. You can just scroll to the bottom of the page too and schedule a call with us. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. We will help sit down with you, figure out exactly where you're at, and give you a roadmap of what it will look like moving forward to make improvements and shift and give you direction of where you should go.
Yep.
So on that note, guys, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Yeah. Talk to you then.
Listen to us next time. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.